On today's episode, we have Casey Oddfellow Ward, one of the brains behind the Electro Cult Circus, a multimedia performance group. We talk about parallel universes, the Mandela effect, aliens, cross-dimensional beings, disclosure, shadow people, skinwalkers, and we even get to listen to a recording made at the Mansfield reformatory, also known as the Chasteen prison. So without further ado, let's get on with the show. And welcome to the show.
Thanks, guys, for having me. I first want to say that I love paranormal, anything paranormal, and I think it's super important in this day and age to be around people that understand this stuff, just because the stigma in society has gotten crazy. It's like, it's always been there, but now I think more people are coming out and talking about it, so you're going to have more of a divide even. But I thank you guys for making a podcast like this. I've always wanted to be part of a podcast like this, so just thanks for having me first off.
Yeah, no problem.
Welcome. But, I think that's true to your point. Like, when you said it's, kind of become like people don't like to talk about it. But you remember, like, back in the day, like, wasn't uncommon for people to, like, have seance parties. Mm-hmm. Like, that was a normal thing.
Well, like, the Ouija board was, like, the talking board was, like, common. And
Right, yeah.
So, yeah, that was kind of our whole thing about the show. Is just, like, we want people to get on the show and just talk about whatever,
Yep.
It's like everyone has crazy experiences.
Safe place.
Yeah. I like the fact that, like, everyone always has crazy experiences, but no one really wants to talk about them.
I know, until you get around a campfire, somehow that brings it out. You always get, I always try to be the person to, like, bring it up, and
yes.
You get shunned by like 7 other people, but there's always that 8th person that you connect with, and it's like,
right.
That's all that matters.
That's all that matters. Then that person's my friend, and I don't need the other ones, because I actually do kind of take it personally sometimes, because I feel very interested in it. I feel like it's like, I feel like you get shamed, man. You get kind of shamed by certain people if you try to bring up certain subjects, and it's like, I don't want to talk about the boring crap you guys want to talk about. I want to talk about this.
It's funny too, because you do get shamed, and I've noticed that sometimes, like, people won't even do it to your face.
No.
Like,
Definitely.
they won't. No. It's like,
it'd be almost better if they did, because then you could, like, have it out.
Right, right. But no, it's like you find out, like, like I've gotten from some people, like, this mentality that, like, this is a weird pagan girl who believes in supernatural stuff, and
See,
what a weirdo.
I'm one of those people who, like, someone mentions something and my ears will perk up. I'm like, oh, what, huh? Like, go ahead and tell your story. Like, I want to hear it.
Yeah, me too.
And people are like, oh, you might think I'm crazy. I'm like, trust
Nope.
me, I'm not gonna think you're crazy.
Right.
So
It's comforting. I just want to take a breath and relax to be around people like that, because you can open up. Because I've had it so much in my life, man. It's just and you're right. It is behind the scenes. You start finding out, but you find out these people that are doing that, they really have had no experiences, and it's like, you almost, I don't want to say I feel sorry for them, but it's like, man, it's such a sad, shallow world to, like, not
close
see
yourself
beyond.
off.
Yeah, it's.
Yeah.
I could tell you some stories of just close people to me that I've had to. Some have come around, but some have not. But
I think one of my favorite experiences with that, though, was, like, the complete opposite spectrum. At one of my old jobs, one of my coworkers that taught in the classroom with me found out I was pagan, and she wasn't. She was Christian, but she always was asking me questions about it, like, because she wanted to know.
Yeah.
And I was, like, so taken back by that. I was like, this is such a different perspective and different way that I've not been treated by somebody asking me questions who was on the opposite end of the spectrum. It's usually when I meet somebody like that, it's very like, oh. And then that's it. It's just like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I'm like, I know what that "oh" means. I know what you mean, by the way,
like,
everyone.
oh.
We know what it means.
Yeah. So, parallel universes.
Yeah, parallel universes, yeah.
Where do you want to start?
Well, there's so many places we can start, like we were saying, You could go the alien route, the ghost route. You could do time slips. I love time slips.
Let's go with this. What about any personal experiences with, because you said you've mentioned some things with parallel universes, so.
Yeah. Well, when you asked me that question, I thought you just meant parallel or paranormal in general.
Okay, yeah.
So let me think about that. Now, if we're going to go the dream route, I've definitely had some dreams where, I'm in a relationship with this person that I knew and I know in this world, and it's a completely different, like, let's say in the dream world, it's a healthy relationship with someone who maybe doesn't have the same issues. There's one person in particular, not going to name him, obviously, but
Right.
I would have these recurring dreams with this girlfriend of mine where we were in this really healthy relationship and we were really in this loving, like, I think we even maybe had a child, but then I'd wake back up into this world and it was a nightmare. And not, some of it was my
Right.
fault, of course. But that kind of happened dream-wise. I've had, some psychedelic experiences that were pretty intense with just going, walking into places or into the woods where it's like you get the Oz effect thing. You've heard
Yeah.
the Oz effect, right? Where everything gets quiet. That always seems to be a precursor to anything paranormal, and definitely dimensionally shifting. You can just feel the wind change, or there is no wind. I've had that experience a few times where I'm like, ooh, something's wild. We're not in Kansas anymore.
Right. Something
kind of vibe.
switched. It's glitched or
Something
something.
switched.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so funny, the thing you say about the dream, though. I've had a similar thing happen where I was dreaming for a short period of time, like having frequent dreams about someone that I dated in my past. And it was like the same thing. Like, it was like a very healthy, happy relationship where we ended up together. And then, like, I wake up and I'm like remembering how things were when we were together. And I'm like, that's not how that was at all. So, like, it made me ask the same questions. I'm like, is this, because it felt very intense and very real. I'm like, was this another route in some other world where this actually happened?
Yeah, it's a weird flip side. It's like, what's that's called when you're like, two things need each other, but they're opposites, polar opposites, I guess. Because what's funny? I feel like I'm in the healthiest relationship I've ever been in right now.
Same.
But I have dreams where we're not doing well. So I didn't even think about that till right now, because I have dreams, and we joke about this all the time. Because I'm like, dream you cheated on me again last night, or dream me and you divorced, and it's like, it's really weird.
Well, that's
it's
the
like,
whole thing. That's like, if you do something bad in a dream, you have to like apologize.
yeah.
Yeah, I do the same thing. I'm like, sorry.
Yeah, you kind of feel it. I mean, because some part of you is actually having that experience. I think everything's real if you're experiencing it. It's so weird that when you're dreaming, you don't realize you were asleep until you wake up.
Right, because you get the same emotions that you would
Right.
get in reality, and like sometimes I'll come out of a dream and I just have like these really intense, overwhelming emotions, and I'm like, it's hard to sit and separate like that from like it was a dream.
Yeah. Did you guys ever see that movie Waking Life that was out a while back?
Oh, yeah.
It was like cartoony kind of. There's some real good stuff in there if you watch
I've seen it. I used to like love
I've
that
not
movie.
seen it, but I will.
It is your stereotypical. I like the movie, but it also has that vibe of you're sitting around in a college dorm and everyone's like on
Yeah.
acid and everyone's
It's a
talking
little-
about what's it mean, man?
It's
like
a little bit of that.
that movie kind of has that vibe a little bit.
The thing I like though is the fact that the whole movie is the kid died basically,
Yes.
and I thought that was neat because he's basically I do feel it felt familiar in a weird way.
Right.
Like is this happening now, or did this happen to me, or is this what happens? You wake up and like this will be being Ashley was just a dream. Like you'll feel as connected to this as you did your dream last night. Like we were just saying, because this whole thing could seem like a complete lifetime, and then you wake up and you're like, nope, that was just last night's dream, and I'm on planet Schmorgelbach or whatever. I don't know what happens
And, I
next.
mean, not to get like super morbid, but also it does make you like contemplate sometimes. Like, so what happens when I die? Is like that what's gonna happen? Is like my entire life was just some kind of like dream or
Weird
something
dream.
else that's like on a different plane.
Some virtual alien
Right.
game. I don't know. I think about that stuff way too much.
Same,
It's you guys. I'm sure you guys do. You made a podcast, so
right?
yeah.
We made a podcast. We think about it
Yeah.
so
Right.
much.
There's no too much. People aren't thinking. Everyone else isn't thinking about it enough.
right.
That's
Not
the
enough.
problem.
Like that is the problem. I feel like.
That's always been like a big thing with me in parallel universes. I've always thought about like what kind of person I am in other universes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a big question, I think, though. And I think that's a good question to be asking yourself, though. Like, it's very, like, humbling to, like, realize that, maybe you should be a little bit more grateful for who you are and what's going on in your life right now, because you don't know, like, somewhere else you might be a murderer.
Right.
Sure, yeah. And then you get into the whole Carl Jung, J, whatever. His stuff's really interesting because you get into the whole shadow work kind of thing, where I've been learning about that lately. Quarantine kind of got me into that world. A lot of people talk about it, but it's new to me. But I think it's interesting when you're born, you're like a baby is just very honest about what it wants and thinks and feels, but then society imposes itself on that baby, and you start realizing to have these feelings or have these thoughts, is shunned upon. Like even my little cute puppy, I gotta like tell it no, but it's like starting to it splinters realities. Like every time it starts learning, I want to do that no thing, or you start getting like these little split personalities, which turns into, to me, alternate realities. Like I think each split personality is kind of an alternate reality of what you could have done or could have been, but you're stopping yourself. So it gets to be, shadow work is basically taking the guilt out of any thoughts you have. And because the problem is when we suppress some of these natural thoughts we have, they get like spoiled. And that's where you get your perversions and your murderers. And because people are like, it explodes out of them. Like we were saying earlier, if you didn't let certain people have a platform, it's just going to explode out of them. We can't suppress things, man. We're learning psychologically. Suppression creates obsession. It's like cannot. Yeah. It's not the way to go.
Like that's why I agree with you on that. Train of thought too. Like if somebody is expressing that they want to talk about something, it's very important. Even if you're like, okay, maybe I don't agree with that or I don't relate to that. Like you should let them talk.
Yeah.
Because you don't want them to suppress that and then be like you said, explodes later on. Because
I guess that could go to what we were talking about earlier too, because I was sort of complaining about Facebook people that complain a lot on there negatively and how that draws people in. I guess maybe that's their way of therapy. I just feel like
but I feel like at the same time too, I just feel like, and that's not talking about, I just don't feel like that's a healthy outlet.
I know it doesn't, because
I feel like I understand maybe you're expressing that you need an outlet, but I think like people in that position, like you need to find someone. Yeah, not Facebook. You need to find someone, because Facebook, you're opening, or any internet platform, you're opening yourself up to anyone's response, and you could get harmful responses. So I think like people in that aspect you need to find a healthy individual.
Well, I think a lot of people post stuff on Facebook. They want fights, they want confrontation,
or they want attention. Sometimes I feel like,
I don't know. There's just so much negativity.
Maybe there's a parallel universe where Facebook doesn't exist, or maybe Facebook only exists in our universe. Let's hope so.
No.
This is why I'm always like usually just on our Twitter, not my personal Twitter.
No, you're smart. The more I live, the happier. The days that my phone sits over here and I don't look at it are always more at peace, much more at peace.
I agree.
But I also like connecting. I would have maybe not ever talked to you guys much, if that didn't happen. So there's like always a good and bad side. There's always duality, man. It's like tricky.
Whereas like that comes down to like the internet in general. There's a lot of good things about the internet. There's a lot of bad things about the internet. So it's like, it's a double-edged sword.
It's like the darknet is a weird parallel universe, or like like video games have a lot of parallel universe kind of similarities. Like the dark Mario levels or whatever. It's like,
or Castlevania, where the castle flips upside down and you have to do the whole thing backwards and forwards.
But you also, so that's funny too, because there was
Stranger Things.
Something I was reading about
it's kind of like
recently, and I forget. I'm gonna see if I can try to find it real quick.
What are you talking about?
This thing where scientists found proof that they think parallel worlds might exist, and I forget what the exact thing was, but there was something that showed them there was like possibility of a parallel universe where everything was upside down.
I read that too. Yeah.
I think it was like in Antarctica or something.
Yeah, I read infinite amounts of that, and so maybe that'd be a good time to bring in CERN.
Okay.
So we're talking about CERN and the Mandela effect, and what's the theory there? You tell us.
Well, it's like, okay, so when did they supposedly open a black hole? Was that in 2008?
Sounds right.
I think it was like in 2008 they opened up the black hole, and then supposedly that's when the Mandela effect started.
Yeah.
And like everything is like, because they opened up a black hole. This is all speculation. None of this is true. This is the conspiracy, I guess. Is they opened a black hole on Earth, and it somehow created a ripple throughout all the parallel universes, and they're kind of like merging, and things you remember may have been from a different universe.
Yes.
Remember there was that article I sent you, Casey, about that, like things that versus like your brain, like it was like common things that they did a study, and they found out like a lot of people remembered these things incorrectly.
Well, that's the other thing too, is your memory is faulty. But it's like the group thing of like.
Well, that was they were saying, they were talking about the Mandela effect. They were like, is this your brain trying to fill in something, or is this the Mandela effect that this was possibly we were remembering it incorrectly
So-
because somewhere else that is the correct way?
My brother and I got in a huge argument because I remembered C-3PO's leg being silver in New Hope.
Okay,
And
that's one of the things on
he
this
didn't
list.
remember. He was like, no, his
I
leg's
didn't
always
know
gold.
that.
And I was like, no, dude, his leg's always been silver.
I was with your brother. I did not know
And
that until I read that article. I
we
was
got
like,
this
what?
huge fight over this. I was like, no, dude. Like he's like, no, it's always been gold. I was like, no, it's always been silver. So that's one thing. Star Wars has a lot of Mandela effects.
Yeah,
like
there are.
it says like, no, I am your father versus Luke, I am your
Right,
father.
that's another one.
That's
Or
like-
another common one, not Star Wars related, is the Monopoly guy doesn't have a monocle.
Monocle.
Yeah. There's some really strange ones, like just the Berenstein Bears one.
That
all
one
on its
freaks
own.
me
Like,
out.
It's
I'm
not
like-
stain. It's never been stained in
That
my
one
brain.
I did know because when I was younger, I remember saying it incorrectly, and my mother is an English teacher. She's a retired English teacher now, but at the time she was still an English teacher.
Do you remember
and
it
she
spelled like stain?
Stain?
No, because she corrected us and
Stein.
showed us that it
Stein.
was
Stein,
like she's
Stein.
like, so see, that's how it's spelled, and it's pronounced Stein. It's not pronounced stain. And like, so that one I can't say I fell into because I was corrected at a very young age that that was not right.
Some of the other famous ones.
There's one that really bothers me, and it's not as famous, but it bothers me because it takes away the whole meaning of the scene. It's from a James Bond
Yes,
film.
with Jaws, the
yeah.
braces.
Doesn't even make sense.
Holy shit!
Why would that even happen now?
When I first heard about the Mandela effect, I was like, okay, yeah, whatever. And first I was talking to was like, no, dude, go. Like, have you ever seen Moonwalker? And I was like, yeah. He's like the scene with Jaws at the very end with the girl, and I'm like, what do you mean? Like,
Doesn't even make sense.
so, do you know what we're talking about?
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
listening just real
Okay.
quickly. I'm like trying to find this article.
That's fine.
That's
So
fine.
you guys go. I'm gonna
All right.
try because it has a list of examples.
So,
right.
so yeah, it's she at the very end he saves this girl. Throughout the movie, she had braces and she's nerdy. And then at the very end, he smiles. He shows his jacked up metal teeth.
Yeah.
and she smiles and she has braces.
And they fall in
they're
love.
Yeah, and now she doesn't have braces. And it's
Doesn't
like,
make any
what
sense.
the heck?
There's no connection. It doesn't make. It's like, what would cause that? That stuff. Those ones bug me.
Yeah,
They're very weird.
That one
like
is one of the
that.
weirdest examples of the Mandela effect to me. It's like, what the heck?
I know.
Because it totally changes the scene.
There's a couple others. And then there's people, if you look online, there's some interesting stories about people being like, I know my neighbor died and he's out there mowing the lawn right now.
Right.
So
Like
yeah,
some of that gets creepy, which, man, it's really weird.
'Cause, yeah, that's like parallel universes like supposedly like shifting into each other, and that's why someone might have died, and that's where the whole Mandela effect comes back because everyone that's where the name comes from because everyone remembers Mandela dying.
That's right.
And then it's
And
like,
you would think it would happen to normal
dude,
people
another
too.
one
Yeah.
was I forget his name, the guy who played Mini Me.
Yeah, Vern Troyer. Yeah.
So he recently died in like 2016.
Yeah.
I thought he died in like early 2000s, like after
Weird.
the third James Bond movie. I remember seeing like things about him passing away, and I was like, oh man, it sucks. And then I just recently found out he just recently died. I was like, what?
That is weird.
And I texted some people and I was like, hey, when did Mini Me die? And they're like, oh, he died in like the mid 2000s. And I was like, okay, so I'm not the only crazy person who thought that he died a while back and then he just recently died.
I found it.
Okay.
It's so tricky.
40 examples of the Mandela effect.
Yeah, so the C-3PO is the
C-3PO's
first
leg.
one.
Mandela.
Mandela's on there.
Oh, Jiff, not Jiffy.
Jiffy.
I always
yes,
remembered it
I
as
use
Jiff.
but I know people who say Jiffy. Some of them, yeah.
Oh, yeah, Looney Tunes, not Looney Tunes.
Yeah.
So Tunes and Tunes.
The Berenstain Bears is on there.
These are all like the more common ones.
Curious George doesn't have a tail. That's one apparently.
Oh, Sex and the City and Sex and the City.
Yeah, some are like so minute, it's hard to know.
Right.
Like maybe someone just said it too.
Febreze was one for me though.
No, yeah, it's spelled differently. It doesn't have
It
two
is
E's.
not spelled Breeze.
Yeah.
But I like that we're having this conversation. Because, it's like, that's what I'm glad, regardless of which are real or not, I'm glad people are talking this way because it is neat to think that that could be happening.
I'm
you know?
also glad like there's so many like articles about this now, and there's so many videos, and people are talking about it. It's like, and people are finding like new examples like every day. So
there's some really interesting
Oh,
ones.
this
Right.
was one that got me.
Oh yeah, the Fruit Loom logo.
What's that? What's
So there's
Does it have a cornucopia or not?
what's a cornucopia?
The basket thing?
I always thought it did.
it
does
doesn't.
not.
What?
Yeah, that's one of the ones I saw that I had the same
That is
reaction. I was like,
weird.
Oh,
what?
the other one
Yes,
was
it
the
does.
Coca-Cola logo.
Yes, it
the
does.
the bar like is up higher. It's not in the middle. It's like up high on the Coca-Cola logo. Oh, and the Ford logo.
I was going to say that.
Has a loop, which I never remember that damn loop.
I don't remember that. I just saw that on the car the other day. And I was like, that loop's not always been there.
The Flintstones is one. So the Flintstones has 2 T's in it.
Right now it does?
Yeah. No,
it's not
Flintstones.
It's not Flintstones. It's Flintstones. That was a big one for me too. I was like, wait, do you need a visual? Because it's on my laptop.
I believe you, but that's disturbing.
Yeah.
They are weird, man.
Apparently chartreuse is one.
Chartreuse.
Some people like swear up and down that it's pink. It's like a shade of pink or red.
Instead of green. Yeah.
Also, the life is like a box of chocolate thing in Forrest Gump. He didn't say that. He didn't say life is like a box of chocolates.
What?
He didn't. He said life was like a box of chocolates because he was reminiscing.
Okay,
But
I
still,
thought
it's minor,
the
but
line
it
in
is
general
like-
was gone. I was like,
Yeah.
No,
That'd
the
be
line
too
in
much.
general, but like he
I
didn't
know.
say like a lot of people will swear
My-
up and down that he said life is like
my
a
thing
box
with
of
the
chocolate.
Mandela
That's not what he
effect
says.
is what drives me nuts is like I want something major to happen with it. I want like the Statue of Liberty to fucking vanish or something weird. Like I want
Right.
something like massive, not some little simple pop culture thing that's a word
These
or
are all
an
pop
image or
cultures.
yeah, like
But
something
like some
simple.
Trump
of them
became
are
president,
Big
that's
things
an-
like this one, like in Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, the Queen never said mirror, mirror on the wall.
She
She says
weird.
magic mirror on the wall.
Yeah.
She
That-
doesn't say mirror, mirror on the wall.
That's not right.
Yeah, I would like something
there's
big.
There's the Lord of the Ring ones too. The Run You Fools. A lot of people say
No, it's fly.
it's Fly, which I knew
which
that.
it's always
I
been
knew
Fly
that.
You
I
Fools.
think
'Cause even in the book it
I
says
think
Fly You
that's just
Fools.
people who aren't as big as a Lord of the
Yeah.
Ring fans as.
Yeah, those
most
I don't
people.
know as much.
Well, on top of that too, like fly is not a very common like terminology. You wouldn't say fly, like I mean like go run away or
Right.
something like that. So
Right.
yeah, that one I knew, but because it's like again, it's in the book. But Mr. Rogers' theme song.
Yeah, what's with that one? What happened to
Oh,
his
it's a beautiful.
It's a beautiful. A lot of people will quote the song as "It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood," but apparently the song is really "It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood." They're all like really
There's also-
minor.
yeah, there's
things.
also
some
the,
of them
um,
are just.
There's the safety dance with men without hats. The line is, "You can dance if you want to, but it's actually we can dance if you want to."
The number
Yeah,
of
it's
states in the
weird.
United
See, it's
States
always-
is apparently one.
Yeah, because a lot of people think
Yeah.
it's 52, but it's 50.
It's 50.
Yeah, it's always been you.
I
can
but I
dance
knew
if
that
you want.
because we sang a song about it in elementary school. That's the only reason. I
Okay,
know
so
it.
this one, Sinbad never played a genie. I remember the damn trailer for Shazam.
I remember the movie.
I remember the
remember
trailer. And I
the
remember,
movie.
I remember the trailer and everything like that. And that is the one that creeps. It's actually affected him to the point where he thinks he's crazy because so many people remember this movie.
He's like, did I do that movie?
And he swears he's like, no, I've never done this.
Interesting. Yeah, who knows, man? If things are just getting weirder. I mean, people have prophesized the things getting weirder all through time.
Right. So it's like, so moving on from like the Mandela effect, is this what's also causing like other weird phenomenons as well? Do you think like if this is just weird little things and like memories are just getting like things are getting switched? Like what's some of the major things that's happening or
I know.
switching or crossing over or whatever?
Do you remember that movie Dark City with where every night it would change, but like only certain people didn't see it, or like the doctor.
Everyone went to sleep. So the movie,
Yeah.
like they put everyone to sleep. So it was like because it was like an alien like lab essentially, and they put everyone to sleep and they change everything and they would wipe everyone's memories the next day. So they would always try different things every day. But one guy woke up and he realized that something was wrong.
Yeah. And so then you get to the idea of whether or not you believe in the simulation theory thing or not, which, I think is maybe, but I don't think it's like that we're all a big computer. I just think our brains think of it that way. But I mean, there are weird glitches. Like we were watching these videos the other night of birds being stuck in the air. Have you seen those videos of the birds that are just stuck in the air?
Yes.
And then like some guy like took a broom and poked it and it started flying again, but it was just hanging in the air. And there's a crowd of people underneath it. Like what? And this has been a thing. Like birds are like they're just stopping, and then they poke it and they started flying again. It's like
Also,
what?
did you see the thing? I think it was like last year around this time about the pterodactyl sightings.
I think I saw a little bit of
Pterodactyl
that.
sightings.
Yeah, people were swearing up and down that they were sighting pterodactyls.
That's crazy.
That sounds like a cryptid.
Yeah.
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 That sounds like Mothman.
Cryptid, or maybe it is like a time thing.
Are cryptids, interdimensional? You know,
We
that's-
did
some people
have
think-
that conversation.
Yeah, like maybe these are different creatures from different universes
people say
crossing
that
over.
with Bigfoot, there's usually a lot of alien or UFO sightings around
Right.
Bigfoot things, or it's all like it all
There's
ties together.
all kinds of weird shit in forests anyway. There's like
Mhm.
so much weird shit in forests that we don't know about.
I think though too with that, like there's just, not to get off the subject of parallel universes, but just for a second, like I think sometimes people forget in the reality the amount of open land that still exists
Yeah.
that we don't go near
Yeah.
or touch, and that it is, and same with the ocean, like
Yeah.
there's a large amount of land and ocean that we've not explored, or like we don't frequent. So I feel like it would be very narrow-minded for us to be like, we know everything.
People,
lives.
that's always where humankind fails, is the ego of like, well, we're the center of the universe, or it's like, and then it gets into pantheism and that kind of stuff, where it's like, I don't think we're even the center of, and this actually does have to do with parallel time and stuff, because humans believe, if you get into what the now is, the actual now of time that we experience, we all think our now is the penultimate now because we're the ones experiencing it. Yeah. So of course, just like we thought we were the center of the universe, or we think we're the most important, like they say in what's the movie where they actually were here for the dolphins the whole time?
That was Star Trek.
Maybe. Well, there's Star Trek, but then there's also
I was going to say the same thing.
there's what's the one where it's
Voyage Home.
Hitchhiker's Guide to the
Oh
Galaxy?
yeah,
The
Wait, no,
dolphins.
Star Trek was the whales.
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 Yeah.
But they really were here the whole time to help the dolphins. They didn't even give a crap about us, which is
Yeah.
it's funny, and I don't blame them. But like,
So long, thanks for all the fish.
yeah, exactly. So we always have that assumption because we're us. We think we're the, and that's
Right.
kind of natural. But what were we talking about? We were talking about something earlier. We were saying that's kind of the self-centeredness always.
Well, I was
drives
gonna
me
say it's
crazy.
also like this universe, supposedly like universe alpha, like
we
we're,
think
Right,
we are
right.
the main.
Which
we're
I
the
always
core,
think
which is like who knows?
Also funny.
Why
Why would we
Probably
be
not.
the core?
Yeah.
Why?
universe?
Like with all
Of
the
all the universes.
shit that like happens here and has happened, like why would we be the alpha
But it's also
universe?
I've
Yeah.
also heard the
No.
theory that the
Highly
reason why
unlikely.
we would be the core universe is because of like how grounded everything is. So it's like everything that's based on here, like any decision here creates the, like we were talking about, is like what creates those splinters and multiple like universes. So like this plane of universe, not just our planet, but no, this universe is like alpha, and everything that happens here creates all the ripples from everything from this
But
point.
I feel like, on that hand, with that being said, I don't think that would necessarily make us the alpha, because if it was a big enough event anywhere in any universe, I feel like it would cause a ripple effect.
Maybe the idea when you get to be born into a new universe, that one automatically gets to ripple off, but
Right.
it could be born from another ripple. That's another ripple. It just goes on.
Yeah.
Then
Well,
there's yeah.
Because it's like there's the infinite universe like theories.
Yeah.
It's like it just keeps going and going and going.
Yeah.
So how many there are of us?
I'm a firm believer of that.
I think that's the thing that makes people not think about this too. Is it's so big that
Yeah.
people tend to just kind of almost. I see some of us get intrigued by the bigness and want
Yeah.
to know more. Others
That's me.
get over. Yes, and those are the people. I hate to say it. I'm not trying to sound elitist. But those are the people I tend to find to get on with better. But people that shut down and don't want to think about it, just end up.
I think it's fascinating to me because it's such like a massive, it just keeps going, and it's like I can't wrap my head around it. But I love trying to.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, you got to try.
Yeah, but I think it's funny too with the theory of like parallel universes. You almost wonder though, like I just had this random thought, like the people that believe in like reincarnation, if maybe that's what happens, like when you're reincarnated and you have another life, you just go into a different universe. Like,
Yeah.
Maybe.
how crazy would that be?
That happens
like,
in Stephen King stories.
Right.
That
Yeah.
one character dies and then ended up into their book. You see, he died in Salem's Lot, but he woke up in Dark Tower. The preacher guy.
This is also how Marvel kills off characters all the time to bring it back to
Right,
life.
they have
It's like,
they
oh, he
have
dies?
multiple
Yeah.
universes.
Yeah.
So like there could be a storyline where somebody dies or does something really bad, but in a different storyline they're a good guy or they're still alive.
Let's to quote Mystery Science Theater. Don't worry, they have a spare.
Yeah. There you go. and then
talking about time travel.
Yeah. If you get that would make sense because so many clones and things.
Right, so that's why
at
they
some
have
point.
like Spider-Man dies. Okay, there was released Amazing Spider-Man. It's a different universe. Like that universe of that Spider-Man is over. We'll just create a new universe.
Spider-Man, I think, is one of the biggest as far as comic book awareness and nerds go. Probably one of the biggest examples is like what's going on even currently right now in that timeline of
are all the different
one
Spider-Man
timeline
movies
he's dead, one timeline he's not.
So this is all going to comic books, but the movies themselves they list them as like different universes.
Okay, I always wonder why there's so many Spider-Man.
So like the first three would be the same like Sam Raimi universe, and then the whatever that kid's name, Alex, whatever his name was, who played him. Like that's that version. That's like the Amazing Spider-Man universe, and then the MCU is the MCU Spider-Man universe. So the next Spider-Man is going to have Doctor Strange, and apparently they're going to cross-reference all those movies.
Okay,
so
thanks for clearing that up.
They're actually going to bring them all back together again, talking about multiple universes and parallel universes.
Which is why Doctor Strange is like.
And also
one of
why
my top.
Doc Ock is going to be in the new Spider-Man movie.
And speaking of doctors, I think they did that with the Doctor Who, where they brought all the doctors together.
Yes.
For
Doctor
one
Who's
of them.
done that several times. I think.
Doctor Who is one of those things that like is a perfect example of something that like really opened my mind to like, I already had this idea that I believe parallel universes existed, but like it's like here's this show and we're going to entertain you, but on the same hand we're actually going to prove to you the science behind how this could be possible.
Star Trek does that a lot too.
Yeah.
Try to get into the nerd realm, but
before we started the podcast, before we were recording, the big first example I had in my life that I was talking about was sliders.
Yeah.
It was I think a big one for anybody who was a big 90s kid like and was into sci-fi. Sliders is the big one that like opens you up to parallel universes.
It'd be neat to do a history and go way back though, because like we were saying, that kind of took from Twilight Zone, which is fine. Everything takes from everything,
right.
And then you always need to read.
Twilight Zone took from
something.
H.G. Wells and
exactly.
like, all kinds of other.
Maybe would you say he might be the grandfather of the parallel universe idea? Possibly. I wonder who first coined the term.
But to that, like
I'm not sure who that would be.
Did they really first? But you
because that theory's been around for. I think there was.
I'm sure the Egyptians had something.
Right. They probably did. That's one thing I find fascinating about that culture is we know a very
they had
slim,
copper wiring.
We know a very slim percentage of how they lived. Like we don't know what went on there. Like we know there's like theories going on that are relatively new, that they were way more advanced than we first thought.
Well, there was apparently, according to Graham Hancock or whatever, there's been like 5 major extinctions. Everyone used to think he was a crackpot, but then they started like doing the research and realizing there's like a thin layer of some glassy debris that shows that at least one of the major extinctions, the last one, brought all of humankind down to about 5,000 people. So imagine how much we lost. Like we could have been way more civilized. We could have been talking to aliens, and just don't have any of the history from that.
Well, and it's per the Egyptian theory, that's a big mystery still. Like there's people that think that Egyptians had aliens build the pyramids.
Yep.
I don't necessarily know that I believe that, but I do think something went on there because they've gone through and they've broken down that pyramids were established and all these different cultures spread out over the world in the same period of time, and they didn't have the technology that we had today to be able to communicate long distance. So how did they have such similar building techniques?
Yeah.
Without like how was that?
Yeah.
Like.
And how is it so perfect and everything?
Right, it's so perfect. It's
my thing is why did they build a statue that's 5 miles long that you can only see from outer space?
So there is a theory about that.
There's multiple theories about reason why.
For the purpose of aliens.
That's my belief.
But there is one that coincides with the theory that they had their own developed power source, and it revolved around the stars, which makes you wonder aliens, but that's part of the reason.
Also, there's theories that they were trying to build something so the gods could see it from the heavens.
Yeah,
my belief is they're.
Well,
gods
they're
were-
building something
there's
for aliens.
also
The gods
Steve-
were
That's,
the aliens.
that's
yeah.
also the fun. That's
Right.
also the
Well,
more
there's-
fun explanation of why someone would spend hours.
They have a lot of pictures of aliens.
Many
and, like,
years building this giant statue that no one can see.
There's also
Yeah.
this misconception too that the pyramids are tombs,
yeah.
and you'll hear people phrase that even too, like on TV shows. And there's not ever been one body found
Regardless-
in a pyramid. The tombs are beside the pyramids; they're not in them.
It's so fun to even just talk about these freaking mysteries, though. That's
Yeah.
what I'm
Right.
talking. Like how because it almost like creates like your brain just starts. I just start waking up. I get out of like I start getting excited about
Yeah.
like what
Yeah.
are the possibilities of what this existence is. I know a lady who says. So the pyramids are basically here to represent the enslavement of humankind by the aliens because they got us to create these things that are basically pointing off the planet and directing, just like she sort of aligned it to church steeples and whatnot. We won't get religious, but basically saying how something's always trying to take our energy off of ourselves and point it out like there's something greater than us to remind us that we're subservient to a higher force, which is awful because really the whole universe is within us and with outside of, it's like if you look at quantum, like we're made of stardust. And so that gets into a weird spiritual realm where it's like maybe the pyramids are bad and the aliens that made us build them are bastards.
Maybe
there's theories.
There's a lot of
but,
theories
I know.
about that
also
too.
kind of related to like Egyptian and talking about parallel universes. One of the common things that like happened then was as far as like their belief in like gods and things, like they would take drugs to like
Yeah.
trip out to connect with the gods, but you almost wonder, were they like exposing
Well,
themselves
also-
to some kind of parallel world and they didn't know that's what it was at the time?
Also, we're like gods, like just from a parallel universe, like something.
Yeah, are
they're
they just like
crossing
a
over?
different form of being from a parallel universe
know.
that like we don't have the ability to conceive that?
Because the more research you do on some of these stories, man, it's
It's
like,
a rabbit hole.
It's crazy.
It
It's
is.
just
And
it just keeps going deeper and
Yeah.
deeper and deeper, and it's just like it gets crazier.
It is.
But I love it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
It's
I love it.
one of the best things. Everything, is a rabbit hole. Sports never ends either. But yeah, it'd be neat to get some answers.
Anything you get into, like anything that's your hobby. If politics is your hobby, if sports is your hobby, if this stuff's your hobby, if music, anything, movies or whatever.
Yeah.
The farther and more you learn about it, it's like it's never ends. There's
Yeah.
always something you can learn. Like you
Who's-
can just keep going into it.
Who was the guy who said that? Aldous Huxley was saying, when the doors of perception are cleared, you realize the truth is that everything's infinite. And that's true. Like, if you follow any strand, you realize
Yeah.
there is no end to it. There's no beginning to it. And that breaks it down to the whole time thing again. There is no end or beginning to time because it's always now. There is no time. The concept of time that's the thing I think is the most important thing in understanding the basis of all reality is get your mind out of the time trick because the suffering comes from thinking of your past or your future and like defining yourself by your past or what you hope the future is. But if you get in the now, magical things start. That's what all religions go pointing to is just like meditate, get into the now, and that's what I keep reminding myself. It's really hard to stay. Stay here.
I think a good like visual example of that, one of like the best visual examples I've heard of like time is to go back to TV show Quantum Leap, where his
Oh,
theory
yeah.
on time is
Show's
time
great.
travel. It's a loop. Oh, but what if you took that loop, like imagine a loop is like a string and you crumbled it together so the points in time can touch.
Yeah.
And you can go from one point in time to another point in time in your life, like they're the same point of time.
They collapse. They call it
Right,
collapsing.
they collapse,
Yeah.
they overlap, and that's how that's presented in that.
It ties
show,
in.
and
It ties in. This quantum. It's neat that you brought quantum physics. I don't understand it at all. I don't even
Nope.
think
I don't.
nobody does.
I try
Yeah.
to like.
I don't.
I try
That's
to like.
my only knowledge
yeah.
of quantum
I tried to do
physics
some-
is what Sam Beckett tells me on Quantum Leap.
I try to like just get like a quick understanding of like quantum physics and just kind of, especially even preparation for this episode, I was trying to like do some like, research and I was like, I'm an idiot.
Don't worry though. Even the
I'm like,
scientists
yeah,
don't.
It's so like even physics in general. It just
They can't understand it either. That's
yeah,
why it's blowing up.
It's so insane. I'm like,
Yeah.
this is way beyond.
It's beyond our comprehension. But the thing that is interesting is some people that I know that have done more research and have more. There's one guy named Anthony Peake. If you get a chance to follow him, he's really interesting. And I know it keeps seeming like we're going off topic, but everything really does tie into multiple
If
dimensions.
you're talking
Yeah.
about parallel universes, can you really go up?
You can't,
No, you
because
can't.
it's all
It's all
like
together.
this guy believes he has really valid. He's a really cool guy because he's not foo-foo, fairy, new agey stuff, which I think there's room for that too. But like he's but you could see where some people go too far into that realm and they'll
Right.
just believe anything, or like a fairy told me. It's like, come on, maybe. But this
Probably
guy,
not.
no, probably maybe not. Maybe in their reality, everyone has their own.
Right.
But this guy like has concrete, like this guy named this, did this research on this date that was ignored by these political or this scientific, because a lot of science, they're humans, they don't want to be told something they did was wrong, or even Einstein's being shown to be like he wasn't really right about all this stuff.
Right.
But his theory is like, we don't experience our own death. I will experience your deaths. It's called your reality will collapse, but not for you, but for others. Like, for instance, my father passed away a couple years ago, and I often think like, did he die or did he wake up from a nap the next day? And he
Right.
went to Christmas with me in this other dimension, and we're still goofing around watching SNL or whatever we did. And but in my reality, for whatever reason, I saw my dad pass, and it's like, and others will see that. And so that's just how some dimensions are. Like, this is a dimension where he died of a heart attack on the couch, but like there's dimensions where he didn't. And like you each will have that version. So like you never experience your own death is what this guy says, because he goes, your own reality cannot collapse because you are an eternal being that will forever live, and you will relive your life again. And it's really interesting how he describes it. It seems crazy, but when he goes into all the details, and it goes way beyond what my mind can comprehend.
Yeah.
He's written books about it. He calls
Sounds
this,
like it.
it's fascinating,
lot.
but he really likens it to a virtual reality game where he says you have these things, these avatars that are, that's why some people will get voices in their head like, don't do that. And if you listen to it, you'll be spared some like horrible fate. But like, look into Anthony
I think
Peake.
that's also like part of that just instinct.
Right.
I
Could
think
be,
that
could
sometimes
be.
that voice in your head just says, "Hey, I shouldn't do that." Is like
Could
just
be.
natural instinct of
Yep.
just yourself saying, "Hey, you're an idiot if you do that," because it's
But
like,
I
it's gonna get
also
hurt.
I also
It
feel
could
like
be.
there's that there's that, but then there's also
Yep.
the whole different route of like it's something that you're not necessarily going to get hurt, but it's like something as simple like you're trying to decide like, do I want to go to such and such event or not?
Yeah, and somebody
And,
tells you
like-
like you shouldn't be going. Like
Right, something in your
I
head is
shouldn't
don't go, and then something happens.
Some people hear very clear voices though, like a very clear voice. Like they'll be driving and they'll go something like it's something comes in almost like a speaker.
Yeah.
It says like, and because they'll report this. A lot of different people have reported like a very strong, hey, don't do that right now, and they're like, what? Like it's weird. It's
You almost wonder if it's somehow some other universe jumping
Could
in.
be,
Like, we don't know, like parallel
Yeah.
universes. They could have that technology to
I
be
know.
able to come in and
or it's your higher self playing this video
Right.
game where you're on this other realm, seeing it different. I don't.
Or
know.
some people might
But
say
it's-
it's like angels.
It could
like,
be
coming
angels.
in,
It's-
or
it's
it
funny.
could be ghost. It could be an alien. It could be.
And I know the possibilities are endless.
What-
It's
what
funny
that
you
could-
say
what
the
that could
thing
be.
about your dad though,
Yeah.
like because I lost my dad in 2012 to cancer, and I still have dreams about him, but they're very vivid and they're very real. And there was one instant too where like I was having a dream about him, and like I don't know if you've ever had these dreams, but in the dream at one point I woke up and I had reached out for his hand and he put his hand in mine, and then I woke up and like I could still feel
Yeah.
his hand.
Yeah.
And it was like
I can feel his presence and just his energy and just who he was, because everyone has their own frequency, like.
right.
And usually when I wake up, there's a point where we're just hanging out, and then I'm like, well, you freaking died. Wait a minute. Well, how is this? And I have to I'm trying to tell him like, and then I think something in that like wakes me up to like, oh yeah, that happens a lot on phone calls. This is one of my favorites, phone calls from the dead. And like people getting phone calls from,
Yeah.
because that's
Yeah.
interdimensional. And usually what happens is they say they'll be talking. There's some really interesting stories out there.
I've heard some of these.
Yeah.
These are good though. Yeah.
Like an old lady, like this one lady apparently would talk to her dead mother like almost regularly, and she said it all stopped one day when she finally was like, "Hey, Mom, you're dead." Like, and she's just like started getting really like static, like, "What? I can't hear you," and like she like never called her back. So it's
Weird.
almost like, does it create like I don't know. It gives me the chills, like just
Right.
like with
There's
the
a-
shadow
there's
people.
There's a Twilight Zone that kind of does that.
Oh, really?
But this was a little more creepier because the lady was getting a phone call, or the man was either a man or a woman. They were getting a phone call, and then they found out the telephone line was going into a grave. So the person from the grave, like literally was calling from their grave. But yeah, going back to your saying, like, yeah, shadow people and parallel universes. I really wanted to talk about this because, like we've all like talk about shadow people is one of my favorite things to talk about because they creep me out to no extent. Because you just don't know what the fuck it is.
You got me creeped out by talking about it. Some reason this is the one time I actually
As
heard
we
it.
sit in
You
this
know what?
very tiny room together
well, like so like I've mentioned, I think it was on
with one door.
the very first episode of the podcast. I think I brought this up,
Spooky
but
door.
like yeah.
See what you did there. I like that. Love that.
But yeah, this is one where I have no idea what this was, but I woke up and there's another version of me standing over the bed,
Oh.
and then like vanished in like the darkness.
That's
and I have no idea. It's scared me to no extent. Still don't know what it was. I was talking to somebody and I was trying to get different theories, and nobody had anything to explain what the hell that was. The only thing I got was that it was like me from an old parallel universe that might have been jealous of where I was,
Could be.
and they were like had malintent towards me.
Could have been also. I hear that sometimes people shape shift things, not people,
Yeah,
but being shape shift to
shapeshifted.
trick you, which is
Right.
really sad when it comes to.
That goes into the skinwalker thing.
Yep.
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 Because the
Skinwalkers.
shape-shifting skinwalkers.
But again, like the skinwalker thing, then like, see, I don't like that one either.
Yeah.
I'm getting like chills up my spine. I don't like the skinwalker thing. But again, that then ties into aliens or the other thing with skinwalkers too that they've tied into. Like, is it a parallel universe? Because that's one of the theories as far as Skinwalker Ranch.
Yeah.
There's a spot on the ranch where they've claimed to see portals.
Yeah.
And they're like, is that what it is? Is that where the Skinwalker
Yeah, there's-
is coming from? Is this
There's
like
theories that like aliens are from another, or just from a parallel universe, and it's just like that's what creates the shadow people,
Right.
because like there's
Yeah.
a lot of experiences with like aliens and shadow peoples coming together at the same time, or different
And
experiences.
there's areas that just seem to be like Stephen King. I keep bringing him up, but the thinnies they call them. There's areas where it seems to be thinner, where like
Right.
the realms. That's where like you'll get a ghost story like
like
there's
the veil is like really thin
just
in that
thinner.
area.
For
yeah.
some reason, we don't know. Like whatever's holding the fabric of time and space together is just it's a little messier there, or maybe the frequency's off, like on a channel.
Yeah.
Because like there's a story of like there's a lot of stories like this, but these kids were playing in the woods and they went back and they ran across a child that was dressed like Victorian age, and him and his mom looked as shocked to see these kids wearing like what we wear, like what the heck. And to them, their time, once again, we're not in the penultimate time, so they're wherever 1800. They see these kids from 1974
Right.
walking up to them, and they're like, "What?" But then these kids went back again. Obviously, the house is gone. There's just the stone steps, stuff like that. And there's
This
part.
reminds
yeah.
me of that story. The guy from did you put the guy from Japan? This happened. I forget when it happened. It happened.
Torrid, the place Torrid, where it's like that other world.
Where the guy showed up and like they didn't know where he was, and
Yeah.
like his ID was from
Yeah.
a plant. Like had his identification looked similar.
Yeah, the man
but-
from Torrid. Yeah,
Yes,
Yeah,
the
I
man from
remember
Torrid.
this.
But
Yeah.
they like nothing matched up, and then like they had a map of like the Earth and like or like the country. or
wasn't
something,
quite right.
And he was really confused by everything. But he
because
was,
he didn't understand.
but
like,
he was
and it
pointing
was-
like
Yeah.
where things were supposed to be, and like his like currency, his wallet, everything was weird and
Yep.
different. And then like the next day he vanished.
yeah.
or it's like
That's
there
that
was
that one's another one that creeps me
there
out.
was
That is
one
creepy.
I watched and there's like several videos of it on YouTube where they have evidence of like situations where they'll have a photo from two different periods of time and an individual will be in that photo
Yeah,
and
that's-
they will look
Yeah.
and it's not like a similar look, it's like spot on same person, same
Yeah.
clothes.
so. It isn't even reincarnation. You're saying like that really looks
Right,
like that
it's
person.
like it's that
Yeah.
exact same person, same clothes, and like they breaking it down to like even like possible like they went into the past because they'll break down like this person's wearing this outfit that doesn't fit in with that time period.
People disappear all the
Yeah.
time.
Right, and that's also their
it's
theory
like-
too, that there's been disappearances of people and
Yeah.
that's what's happened.
Like there's so many reasons for these disappearances. Sometimes it's more nefarious things that are very dark and scary, and sometimes it's things like there's a family that was talking about I think it was a Japanese family. They were on the beach one day, and the husband just disappeared before their very eyes.
You know, that's one thing I love about Japanese culture, though, is they're very they are very open to all.
Yeah, they're like,
yes.
Once something weird and supernatural happens, they're like, oh, okay, that's just,
that's
they're just like,
accepted.
they're just accepting of it. It's like, oh,
And you find that in different pockets of the world. I mean,
Right.
America is very, not all America either, but just certain pockets are just very, like we'll believe in some things. It's all about where you're born and conditioned and to believe.
Yeah, it's like that episode of, and I know that you guys watch this, Unsolved Mystery with the tsunamis.
Oh God,
Yeah.
We were just talking about that the other night.
Yes, it's like
That's creepy.
to them. It's so accepted that like these ghosts from this giant tsunami are like walking around and talking to people.
Well, it's like talking about like places where you are. I found like people who live in a lot of rural areas, like people like from middle of nowhere, have more firm belief in weird stuff. Than people who live like in cities. Like people who live out in like the country, you think they'd be more like closed-minded to some of this stuff, but some of those people, like some of my friends who have lived out in the middle of nowhere, like, oh dude, I've seen stuff.
I almost wonder if that's why I'm more open, is because I grew up in the country. I didn't grow up in the city.
You'd think like people who are like more from rural areas would be more closed-minded to some of the stuff, but I think some of them are more open-minded because they're like, oh yeah, I've seen weird things. I've seen, it's like they're more accustomed to.
I think it's also a nature. Nature has a lot more to give us than if we're not blocking it out all the time.
Right.
In cities, cities are wonderful for their own thing, but you're going to block out a lot of the natural magic, which brings back the whole kind of. I have some pagan in me as well. I don't know what I call it. I don't like to really define.
That's fine.
But I have a real connection to nature. I love nature. I've always needed to be around nature, or I'll start getting kind of wonky.
Same. You gotta.
It's just talks. I mean, it's like something comes through that stuff. But then, like, you'll hear stories too about like you'll hear the reoccurring stories where it's like someone will have a house and then they hear like a party going on upstairs, like an old timey 30s party. Yeah. And it's a reoccurring, and it's like to those people in that party room, they're probably hearing someone downstairs. Like, what's that? And it's like so they both think. Remember that old movie where the guy was talking on the CB speaker to his dead dad?
That was Frequency.
Yes. Something like that.
I can't believe I
Man,
remember
it's
that.
been a while.
I can't believe
I was
I
gonna
remember
say
that.
it's been a while.
To this
since
quaid,
I've
I can't believe
seen
that movie
it.
just popped in my head.
Yeah.
It's good, man. It's still in there. It's still in there somewhere.
I haven't seen that movie in ages.
Yep. You have the synapse. We haven't drank that synapse away. I don't know.
Right.
I drink a lot of mine.
I've only seen that movie like once or twice too, which is really funny. Didn't they remake it? I think they did.
They might have.
I think they did. But there's I heard someone tell a story about they went to a house that used to be an old like brothel.
Oh.
And his wife saw a woman in like a flapper dress, like clear as day, just like as clear as like, and she said that was the most real she's ever seen anything.
You
and
almost wonder.
And they're like, oh yeah, she just hangs out. She just likes to hang out and just see who's in the house.
You almost wonder in
crazy.
situations like that where it's a very clear ghost that people are seeing. If maybe they're not seeing a ghost, maybe that's a hole in time that
I think
they're seeing.
I think it's all tied in. I think a ghost is like a loop on a record. This is just a theory but I mean, I get this from all the podcasts I listen to. It's not like I came up with this, but it just makes the most sense to me that, because I mean, these ghosts a lot of times act as shocked to see us as we do to see them, and
that's like the tape back effect.
Yeah,
where an event happens and they just keep replaying that one event over and over and over.
We kind of talked about that a little bit in the first episode we did with just the two of us.
We were talking about like different type of hauntings, and like there's the one where like an event just happens like every night at like Tuesday at 12:03 at this bridge. You'll see this one event, like this woman jump off a bridge over and over and over and over.
That makes sense. Have you ever been caught in a loop dream? They're horrible.
Yes.
I have not, but I've heard people who've told me that they couldn't get out of it and they couldn't wake up.
I've been having those more in my later in life.
That's so weird because I'm the opposite. I haven't had one in forever, but I used to have them when I was in my probably like mid-20s. I had them quite a bit.
Thankfully, I've never had one of those, but I know like you wake up and you're in a dream. You go crap, and you wake up again, and you're in a dream.
Or this keeps happening, and then but I realize it, but I at some point I have to stop it. And I have to like I have to go lucid and sorry, I'm getting off my
it's like it's almost like that's how it was when it happens to me. It's like I have to like, you have to like snap yourself out of it. So I start like trying to. When it had happened to me, I would start trying to like make myself verbally like talk
or scream or do anything
something
to get out.
Just to get out. And that's like it's not like and like you try and you have to put like effort into it, like repeatedly, to finally get out of it. It's not like, oh, you try to scream or talk and you're out. It's like you have to like push.
You have to push.
And you have
There's
to
a
fight
push.
your way out of it.
Yeah, it's not comfortable. I'm glad I have not experienced the what's the ones everyone get where they're frozen at night? Sleep paralysis.
Yes, I've had that as well. I used to have that as well.
I've only had that like once or twice.
I've had bouts of little bit, but not where I'm like full on.
Freaky.
You know, that's a whole
weird
theory
experience.
too.
I don't
It's
like
funny. One of my
Yeah.
friends sent us a message about, you know, experiencing that. I think it might have been on our spooky door one, or that might have been just to be. But my friend Jesse, I think, sent us some stuff about that once. But yeah, it's very scary, and there's like lots of theories about it. Like a lot of people say, like when you have sleep paralysis, that it triggers certain parts of the brain, and it releases hallucinogenics into your body. But at the same, which I can see being somebody who like firmly believes in science, but being somebody who's also experienced it and seen things that I've seen and experienced this just straight fear.
See, I'm one of those
And
people, like-
seeing something terrifying right in your
Yeah.
face, right in front of your face, that is clearly like coming to do you harm, and then snapping yourself out of it, and that thing's just gone.
Yeah.
Like it's hard for me to tell
I think
myself
there's-
that is just science. Like I'm like, no, something
I think it's
else
both.
is going on. Yeah, I do. I think I think there's a little bit of both.
Some people there's like who have it clinically and it's actually something wrong like chemically, and then I think there's some people who just happen to stay in the wrong house that night.
Yeah.
I mean, and see, because that's the thing too. I will say, when it used to happen to me, it happened to me in the same room of the same house, and once I left there, it's not happened to me since.
Well, here's where it gets interesting, really. Like, cause like I know all those thoughts on it, and it's like if you really go even deeper and break it down, all these words are mush, and they don't mean anything, because what is the old saying that what does Dumbledore say to Harry Potter? He goes, Harry's asking him, well, is it in my head or is it real? And I think Dumbledore says, does it matter? Like, what's the difference?
Right.
Like,
What's the
you're
difference?
still experiencing it. So that's what it comes down to.
It's like
when you
it's still terrifying regardless of what's causing
And
it.
my thing is,
Or-
why can't it be like, you know, the difference between is it real or science? Why can't it be both?
Well, that's where
Right.
you have to get into the basis of what reality is, and that's where it gets the real rabbit hole is the very word itself, reality. So we're all gonna have different ideas of what reality are than maybe the guy down the street,
Right.
and we're all basically living in different dimensions that coincide, because you're having a different experience at a different time. You were born at a different time. You're gonna die at a different time. You're experiencing me, and you know our energies are flowing together or whatnot. But when you have someone that starts talking about reality and science and stuff, like science is great because science is like this bridge going. Imagine an infinite void, which is what we are in, going into nothingness, but it's everything. And you're on this bridge walking out into it as far as you can, and you've claimed all these things that have been every step out into this infinite void, and that would be science. And yes, we have an understanding of a lot of these little things, but you're still standing on a
In the
fucking
void.
bridge. Sorry,
In the
on a
void.
freaking
Sorry?
bridge in the middle of a void. And so science is great for that, and the scientific theory is necessary to get you all these things where we learn. But like
It
gravity,
can't get you everything.
and still these things like the word hallucination, for instance, is used so much to disregard things. But do you know science has no idea what it is, what a hallucination
okay, so
is?
that brings me to
Yeah.
my belief of that. Like,
They just use that word to disregard it.
Yes, your brain is releasing that, but how do we know that? Because your brain is releasing that, and you're seeing this thing,
Well,
maybe your brain releasing
you guys
that is
are-
allowing you to see that reality.
You guys are chemicals right now.
Right.
Right.
And so,
So
when
what's
you
the difference?
snap yourself
Yeah.
out of it, that's why you can't see it anymore, because it's there, but you can only see it in that state.
Well, it's kind of like flipping a channel. It's like, channels are on different frequencies, and you're going to go to channel 62 and you're going to see something different than channel 84 because of a frequency that you're tapping. And your brain, I think, does that also when you go into like alpha state or different drugs or meditation, or throughout the day you're going to go through different alpha states. And then there's the electromagnetic spectrum, which we only see like such a small
Such,
portion, And so take all that into regard. Like everything's crazy, and like to try and say to sit there and be the kind of person that's like, well, this is what's going on, or it's like, just screw off with that, man.
Right.
Like I'm
You don't
done with
know.
those kind of people that aliens, huh? It's like, man, what do you know, Mr. 33-year-old? Whatever you are, like you're such a small time part of this. Like, you should be like sitting down in awe with the rest of us and enjoying this conversation. I just get tired of fine, debunk things. You know, some people are lying. Some people are trying to make up stories, but
or
it's their reality and you aren't seeing it. Like everyone has it. What if everyone's reality is true to them?
Right.
And like, you know,
kind of
we
talked about that a little bit before.
Anybody's experience is like their experience, and
That's
like
their
what
truth.
might be the most terrifying thing to them that's ever happened to them might be something on a very, very small scale that's happened to me. It's like, okay, it's like,
Yeah.
I
You
heard-
have to
I saw something like
respect that.
move in the other side in the other room. I was like, oh, that's scary, but yeah, I've seen that
Right.
stuff all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, if that's the only thing
it's-
you've seen,
but it's like
though,
that's if you've seen that, and it's like you don't know and you've never experienced that before. It's like, it's amazing what you get used to.
yeah. No, exactly. Well, that's true. Just tell anybody that's been in jail. It's like, you know, it's the newcomer. Everything's going to be horrifying, but someone that's been there for 20 years is like, well, yeah, I get beat up every day, but I'm used to it. We adapt to a lot,
Yeah.
you know.
What's like Maori's house, like that haunted fiasco.
right? Like,
What was it?
It's on our. It's episode 2. It's
Yeah.
called Maori's story. But she bought a house and she lived there for 3 years, and it was the most haunted place that I've ever been to.
it's
Oh.
And
I've
she
never
lived
been
there,
there, but it's probably one of
and
the most haunted places
she
I've ever
got
heard
the good
somebody I know
things-
talk about.
So many bad things happened. It got to the point where like stuff would happen in front of her, and she would just be like, whatever.
She adapted to it, like you
Like
said. She just
stuff that's
adapted.
like people would just like totally like people
Yeah,
flipped out
people
over.
would be there.
She'd just be like, it happens. You just-
Yeah, that
and
happens
that's-
sometimes.
And you would be, you have to, we have
right.
to.
So it's amazing
That-
what we get used to, like as
Yeah.
far as like the crazy, scary stuff. Because like some people's spectrum, you know, it's like who haven't experienced much, they experience something and it's terrifying.
And with the
Yeah.
crazy,
And then it's just, like,
scary
used to
stuff,
it.
you know,
Yeah.
it's like it's a lot of it's crazy and scary because we don't fully understand it and we don't fully conceive it. Like
Right.
that's the big reason I think a lot of that stuff is.
But I don't fully understand this. Like, I don't know what's making this table. I don't understand. Like, even your present moment is completely full of unexpected, and so I try to stay in that miracle,
right.
right.
and that keeps me fresh and like keeps me not being too judgmental, you know. And then there's some people you can just tell, you know. There's just some people that just the vibe is like. I think after being around enough people, you can sort of tell like, they're kind of like maybe they're seeing it different than it really was. They're trying to, but you know, some people you hear their stories and you see that's genuine fear coming
Right.
out of
To
that
me,
person.
it's like you can always kind of tell when someone's bullshitting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like someone might tell a story, and maybe it gets to the point where they tell it so much. Like me, some of my stories I've told so many times where I'm just like, it's like I can tell them, and it's like, yeah, it's terrifying.
I don't know. I feel
now,
like
but
there's
it's like,
certain stories that you've told me where like, yeah, you're laughing, but
So,
like
yeah.
I can still like be. I
No,
mean,
there's-
somebody who knows you, I can
Right.
see you laugh, but I can see behind the laugh, like there's still a discomfort.
But yeah, like there's just some stuff I still don't like talking about. But most time with people, it's like they're sharing a story, and it's usually scary. Like, they're usually like, oh well, this happened, and blah blah blah, and then this, and then it's like that's
Yeah.
not the way they're gonna tell it. You know, it's
Yeah,
like if that's the way they're telling a story, it's like I don't buy it.
It seems rehearsed.
Right? Yeah, it seems rehearsed.
But when
or,
even when you
or,
told
or if you have like questions and you ask a question about it, and they be like, you know, then that's when like it becomes interesting because the more you question about it and ask them about that, and they have more things to embellish
Yeah.
and explain about it. Not so much embellishing in a way of like lying, but a way of like, oh yeah, well this and blah blah blah. It's
you
like,
start to remember more too,
Right.
because I think we do naturally kind of, you know, you just want to tend to move on and get into. But like when you were talking about some of the shadow things, I could
Yeah.
feel off you were reliving it a little bit. You were
Right.
kind of repicturing it, remembering because everything leaves a psychic imprint on us, and that's where trauma comes from.
Right.
You know, that's where people have to like get over things. You know, it's like I got in a car accident where I couldn't be on a highway for like years. If anytime someone sped up on a highway, my heart would just start beating. I was like, I can't be on
Dude,
highways.
to this day, it's still like if I walk into a room, like I have to turn the lights on. Like if I'm walking through my house, I turn on. If I'm
Yeah.
like, if it's
You
at
were
night,
affected, man.
I turn on every light as I'm going, and then I turn it off. Like I even have my light in my bedroom set to my phone, so I can turn off my light on my phone. So
Yeah.
when I get everything set up, then I can turn it off. 'Cause
I don't blame you.
Still am like not necessarily afraid of the dark, but I kind of am afraid of the dark.
That's I know, but on a similar thing, no, I completely understand it because that's how I am. Like if Keith is home, I'm fine with all the lights in the house being off at night when we go to bed. But if he is not home, like for example Thursday nights, he goes out and he has band practice, and then I go to bed, and I will have every downstairs light in my house on. Now I'll go upstairs and go to bed in the dark, but like I have to, like, something comforting to me about the lights being on, and I turn the TV on, but I turn the volume down so you can barely hear it. So it's like someone is living in that environment.
Yeah, because the distractions have all left that you leave when you start hearing little sounds. I know I've noticed that too, being in a house now compared to being in the city. The city, there's so many distractions.
You get used to it.
You get but I'm slowly getting there. But sitting in that house, and you're just like, it just feels like there's some more presence.
Yeah.
You're just like,
every time I go, like, let's stay at someone's house who like lives out in the country, like where my parents live now. I was like, this is weird. It's so quiet.
Yeah.
I'm not used
it's like
to
a
this.
thick energy.
Or like sometimes
like,
when I go back to my mom's house in the country, I get like a little uncomfortable because I'm like, this is not what I'm used to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm so used to like just like even where I live, I'm not exactly in the city, but it's still. I still hear subwoofers going on at like 3 a.m. and like cars drive by, and
it ends up being comforting. You don't realize.
I have a train. Like I live right next to train tracks. I hear trains all night and all day long, and just like I've just lived next to trains almost my entire life, so it doesn't even bother me.
I love trains. Something about the trains.
Like,
lulls
Same.
me.
I'll feel agent stuff vibrate, and it won't even bother me. I'm like, okay.
So
I get to sleep through trains, which is
where
crazy.
I was born, like there's a lot of train racks that run in. Southern Ohio, there's a lot of train tracks that run through there. So at night, like, again, that's a comforting thing to me. But I feel like, the country, like, at night, in the summer, all you can hear is crickets in the early night, and then it's nothingness. So I think part of that is when you do hear a noise, it's like you mentally know that it doesn't belong and it's not supposed to be there. Something.
You also get used to the noises of your own house.
Yeah.
So
you do.
You get used to, like, if you hear a noise, what the house sounds like when it's like settling, or I hear creaks in my house, in my apartment. I live in a townhouse, so sometimes I know, like, when my neighbors, they're usually sometimes up late, so I can hear. Sometimes I might hear one of them like move, like walk down the steps or something like that, and I know it's from next door. My cats make noise. I know what they sound like. So occasionally, if I hear something that sounds totally foreign, that's when I'm like, "What was that?"
Yeah.
I lived in a band house in Defiance, Ohio, on this street called Schultz Street, and it was a very open home.
Defiance, that's like middle of nowhere, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty much. And we are just a bunch of hippie kids, punk rock or whatever, just doing what we did, making music downstairs. And usually that house always had at least 3 people in it.
Yeah.
But there's one girl there named Carrie, who she was kind of a crystal fairy kind of girl, and we'd always disregard it because sometimes I'd come home and she'd be like in the corner all scared, and we was like, oh, it's just Carrie. It's like, I heard someone knocking on the window, and I was like, oh, whatever, Carrie. Sure, okay. And then the only night I can ever remember being there by myself, I was upstairs in this one bed, and it was like a summer night. The windows were open, and that thing happened that I remember feeling the Oz effect, probably for the first time, where it was just too still. There was no crickets. There was nothing. There was no cars passing by. It was like something had slowed everything down, and I got this feeling of like. And we lived right by a very big cemetery. That was like next door. So I remember laying there, and I just started thinking about all that. And then I started hearing this
like whistling?
Yeah, up in the trees. And I was like, what is that?
I don't like this already.
It was so scary. It was, and I just laid there like, oh, and I never figured out. Like I was hearing things like signaling me, or I never went to go see what it was.
I think that's always hard when you're scared. I've had that. Growing up in the country, I had a similar thing happen to me when I was like home alone one night, and like I heard this noise like above the house, and it didn't sound like it was something in the sky. It didn't sound like an airplane, and I looked out the window for like a moment, and I saw something that didn't look like an airplane, and I didn't stick around long enough to figure it out. So I'm not saying it was a UFO. It wasn't an airplane. I will say that because I got so petrified. And I remember I was downstairs at the time, and we had like this window seat, and that's the window I looked out because I could like sit in the seat and kind of just look up. And then the dining room table was like right there. And so I just remember seeing it, and the noise, like it was just what I was seeing, and the noise didn't match up as airplane. It was, and I just like, I dove under the kitchen table. I just remember doing the same thing, the same position, and just sitting under the kitchen table.
Do you have any missing time?
No.
that you're aware of, right?
That I'm aware of, right? But again, I was by myself, and
I'm so glad
I
I've never
remember
experienced
too,
that.
like there was a couple lights on, and I was
Well,
right near
that's-
the light switch, and I turned the lights off, and I just sat under the kitchen table in the dark, petrified.
I'm glad the one time I have missing time is me from drinking.
There you go.
Same.
So I haven't had a missing time from
And that was
like,
only one time.
Yeah. So I'm glad that I've experienced anything like that.
Well, just like your friend who was having like the reoccurring, there are people that live constantly with the torment of, tonight might get abducted again by the aliens. You know,
Yeah.
it's like,
Right.
and they're getting all
I
these marks taken out of them.
Yeah,
I
long time.
can't,
I have
like-
never had that, but if I did, I blocked it out. But I did have a phase of my life where, like clockwork, this was in the mid '90s. I'm old, but I knew that if I went out in my car, I would listen to this little space tape with my friends. I brought people with me. I knew I would see 1 to 3 different types of things in the country. And I don't know. And if you look up some documentaries on HBO and stuff, there's a guy that could summon UFOs, and there's a whole movie about him.
Yes, I know who you're talking about. He actually
Yeah.
goes to conventions now, and he still does it.
Yeah.
He's still able
Yeah.
to.
Some people can just do that.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I was doing that or what. And I'm not even saying they're aliens, because here's what's so tricky about what's going on now. With all the exposure of everything, like you were talking about how there's uncharted realms of ocean.
Right.
And a lot of these are being told, we're being told that they're coming out of the water. I don't know if you knew that. A lot of these, they call them now UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena. It's not UFOs anymore, apparently. But
I have heard
but it's just
a little bit of this.
it's just weird to see like newscasters making little jokes. Like I saw one last night, like because they usually do like, "Ooh, ET, huh? Okay, well now for the weather," and it's like just kind of like that never happened. They never talked mainstream about this.
Right.
And there was a lady even last night that started to give a theory. It was really weird. She was a co-anchor, and she was like, I think they actually are us from the future. And the other lady just shut her down. She's like, "Why don't you talk about the weather, Cindy?" And I was like, "Oh
Shut
man,
up, Sid.
I know exactly."
I
They
know.
basically
Let her
said,
talk.
"Shut
But
up."
that's like what we
Yeah.
were talking about
Yeah.
earlier. It's just
Yeah.
like people are just like, if they don't want to talk about it, if that's not something they perceive as part of their reality,
Right.
they don't want
I
to
know.
hear you talk about it either.
And I always thought when it came out or started to come out, this disclosure, people would be as excited as I was. Try posting something about spaceships or aliens on
Dude,
Facebook.
it gets
You
to-
get
Listen,
nothing.
I appreciate the things you post on Facebook.
oh yeah, definitely.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yeah, so anything
But
about like
yeah, I can see there people
Yeah.
being like,
They just
wow,
they just
What
don't.
a weirdo.
They just shut you out. Like
What-
you were
Yeah,
just.
sure.
you're
what I
nothing.
love
Sure.
is the fact that like all the flat Earth videos are still up.
Yeah.
I like.
All the flat
Yeah.
Earth videos
Yep.
and all the dinosaur debunking videos
Mm-hmm.
are still up. But like anything about like we were talking about last episode, like anything about dogmen, you can't find anything about dogmen.
I don't know much about the dogman.
Well, it's just like werewolves.
oh, okay.
Okay, so you can find stuff about werewolves about like anything with pop culture and movies and stuff like that, and books and stuff like that. But anything involving real life situations or people's experiences with them are wiped.
weird.
There's nothing.
That's
Like
weird.
even trying to find
I
like
tried to Google
videos
it
or
during the
even
episode.
even videos and photos.
Couldn't find it.
There's like none.
That's creepy.
Couldn't
Like
find
dogmen
anything.
is like scraped off the internet.
That's weird.
Makes you wonder why.
Yeah, and it's like.
yeah, that's the thing is why.
Like Bigfoot, you can find all kinds of stuff. And the
Yeah.
only thing about Bigfoot and like Loch Ness Monster, like dogmen especially, of whatever reason, that one particular cryptid is like obliterated from the internet.
I also think it's, kind of related to that too. I think it's kind of like interesting to me with all those flat earth videos are still up, and there's certain things people just are continuously comfortably talking about. But then, government released all that UFO footage, like, and we're very open about it. And like,
Nobody
people
cares.
aren't
Nobody's,
talking
like,
about it.
talking
It's
about
like,
it.
it's like they don't care
Yeah.
because it's like, do you not want to face that reality?
I
think
I
that's
think
a big
that-
part of it. Like, you don't want to face
Well, on top
the
of that,
fact that
Yeah.
It's not
that's
like on.
truth now.
Yeah.
They're releasing it, but it's
Yeah.
not like mainstream yet. Like you're just seeing it on like social media, but
Yeah.
it's
But
not
still,
like
a lot of
mainstream
people
yet.
Well,
know
it was
about it.
on.
It's in
It
the
was on
news.
today. It was
Yeah.
on
It was on
today,
the
and then
news.
60 Minutes did a thing on it, and it's like
Yeah.
it's pretty crazy. It's pretty big.
Yeah,
like,
it was
Yeah.
a big deal when it was happening. And everybody was talking
well,
about
there
it.
was
but
just a
then they
new one. There was like literally 2 days ago. There was another one that was like 8 spaceships that were seen.
Yeah.
Like,
But and the thing too, like the show I was telling you about that I watched on Hulu with the Skinwalker Ranch, they
Yeah.
actually talk about it in there because they have a similar situation happen. That is, they're talking about something they saw that was very identical to what was on that video. But and that got me thinking about that. I'm like, why are people not talking
know.
about that? And it's like,
It's almost like there's
we
programming
are
to, like-
one planet. in this endless universe. They've already proven on other planets that there are types of like
I know.
Bacteria
and life forms. And
How could you not be
how
interested?
can you not like
if they
think?
weren't on Facebook at all, but it's the stuff they do choose to talk about. It's so drab and like I mean, it's like fine, but it's like, how can that not be the main thing everyone
Right,
was
how
talking
do you
about?
not wanna talk
like
about
last
this?
week, everyone
I
was
wanna
talking
talk about
exactly.
this.
Like the stuff they choose to talk about is so mundane. So it just shows like really a big problem with disclosure and stuff like
Right.
that is the culture.
And
like,
everybody
people are
knows
just like,
that, like-
that's once again thanks to you guys for like really this is important. Like, that's what I meant to say at the beginning of the show. You guys are doing important work, and I'm
thank you.
Yes,
Thanks.
it needs to happen. So to be the person to come out, but be ready for some backlash and people trying to debunk crap or just basically treating you like you're crazy.
I'm sure
It's
that's
like
gonna
yeah,
happen.
it's-
We
that's
haven't
good, though.
encountered it yet, but I've been waiting for it. But
Yeah,
like
my
to the
whole
alien
life.
things, like too, they've already like I don't understand again because they've already proven that they're looking for and they've found already other planets that are very similar to Earth
Yep.
and are livable but we haven't been there. So there could be life there already. So
it's echo chambers too, because
Yeah.
okay, so if you want to believe in something, it's equal like to not want to believe in something. Like so, Elon Musk, for example, you can think whatever you think of him, but he was on a podcast and they're asking if he believes in aliens, and I thought he'd be one of the first people to be like yes because of all the stuff.
Yeah, no.
But he's basically like no, and kind of like cocky about it, like, well, if they were aliens, I think I would know that they were. And it's like, you're not doing the reason, because here's the thing they always say is like, well, why don't they land?
why does he think he would know? Like, does he think he's so
I think
special? They're
he
gonna come
thinks,
knock on his door.
I
Yeah,
think
he
that's
thinks
exactly it. I think because the
he's-
fact that he's not been tapped by aliens,
Yeah,
that it's like, well,
exactly.
it's an ego. It's all about ego.
And it is ego, and
Yeah.
and also he's not doing the research to see, because all the things he brought up, he's like, well, we have so many more phones now. Why aren't we getting really clear? We are getting really clear pictures. You're just not doing the research, because
Right.
if you're not going to look into something, you're not going to do the research. It's like the echo chamber works
well,
both
it
ways.
makes me laugh that Stephen Hawking believed in aliens.
I know.
I think
That's a smart guy.
I think it's also taking that leap from in science fiction novels and comic books and movies and shows. There's always been this depiction of what aliens are supposed to look like, and I think it's also taking that leap to maybe realizing that might not be the case.
It might not be, because a lot of
Like-
people think these are just kind of like robots they're sending out.
Or the robots. There's also they might be here already.
Yeah. Or yeah.
That's my camp, right?
Yeah.
Who knows?
I feel like we're in high school again, man.
Yeah. I
So
feel
you
like we
have
should be-
So you have
Oh, yeah.
audio, and
Yeah.
this is from your brother who went to the Mansfield State Prison, right?
Yeah. Yeah. My
which
brother
is-
Eric.
Which is known also as the Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah.
also very widely known as the Mansfield Reformatory.
Yeah.
That is what
Yeah.
I've heard it called the most.
That's what it's actually called.
yes.
And here it is. It's him. Trying to do this right. It's him talking to his friend. I think they're talking about some light or something that's not on, and you'll hear a voice say, "Lockdown," because they're in a jail, and apparently that's what's. And I'll send you the real audio. But
Kids recording. Lockdown.
all right, I'll play it one more time, just for y'all. Here it's kind of almost like a whispery voice.
Kids recording. Lockdown.
That's so creepy because it's very obviously not someone that is
Well,
there
it's-
talking,
it's
but
even
it's
creepier with
very
these headphones.
clear.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's more clear in the headphones than
It's
it was
creepy with
when
the
you played
headphones.
it.
It is
But
creepy.
without
It
the
is. Yeah, it is. It
headphones,
is.
like-
Because you can hear my brother's voice, kind of like mine. He's like,
Right.
it's not
Which and
recording.
it doesn't sound like that. Oh, it sounds like it's very creepy.
And he swears, he goes, it was just me and this dude in one of the jail cells, and it wasn't until we listened back, and I was like, whoa, did you hear that? And that's one of those
That's-
things,
Maybe
man.
there's some kind of
So you
evil
didn't hear it-
crazy guard
so
there
they
that's
didn't-
like putting ghosts on lockdown. That's why.
So he didn't hear it when he was there. He only
Nope.
heard it after.
Yep,
Yeah,
one of those classic stories. Yeah,
Weird.
What it was his like? How did he react when he heard that?
pretty freaked out. I mean, he had this a long. We used to play this at parties all the time, and he lost it. It's kind of neat because I don't think he knew I was going to do this, but he just found it like last week. He's like, look what I found finally again, because he'd lost it off an old
Oh,
phone.
wow.
So it all was supposed to be for today. Talk about synchronicities and whatnot.
Yeah, that's kind of weird that
Yeah.
it kind of just happened to show up.
I know. I'm gonna tell him now too. I'll be like, I was on a podcast, man. I played your thing. He'll like that.
So you have some projects you're working on, correct?
Yeah. I'm in a band, but it's a band. You know, Ashley. We're
I do.
weird.
I'm aware.
We
I love it though.
It is. It's goofy. I guess we're a band. We're like a weird collective. To me, it's more like SNL now at this point, and I feel like Lauren Michaels. We've been around for like 2 decades.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I feel like for the most part, like you're pretty widely known in like the Columbus area.
that's
Like
nice.
I feel like not like everybody knows, but I feel like
No.
I talk to like a good people that like have at least heard of you.
You've at least heard of it. Whether you like us or not is up for
Right.
debate, but we may have. Hopefully, the legend. Yeah, we've been getting some weird fans like that. We've like, oh, like, these people know who we are. Like, it's just weird to think
I
that.
mean,
But
I will say for like 2 years in a row when you guys did those shows at Rumba, the cover ones in October,
yeah.
like 2 years in a row, that's what I did for my birthday. So
I wish we could do it again because
Yeah,
we
I
kept
know.
thinking of like
What's it called?
The band or
Everything.
Electro Cult
Everything.
Circus is the band.
Electro
and
Cult Circus.
Electro Cult Circus. Yeah, I don't know why.
Yep.
It came from a long time ago. A public access movie I made. See, it's been many different things. It's been a website, a public access movie, a comedy thing. If you watch so I'm working on a documentary called Under the Big Top, and it's basically an hour-long movie comedy. And thank you for letting me be on this and talk about that.
Yeah,
and
no
this.
no, you're welcome.
In August, it'll be released, and I'm trying to just get some people to give a crap. But it's like, it just shows all the weird stuff we've done over the years. And it's very, like, I'd say it's like a fourth about music, and most of it's about just weird pranks that have happened or backstage things, like just stories that have happened.
I will say I love the clip that you had posted not too long ago about
The director.
jumping out on people.
Yeah. Oh, that's the director that did it. His
Okay.
name is Linda Barron Charles, and but he's missing
That
now.
guy.
We don't know
He's
what happened.
missing?
Yeah, we don't know what happened to him. We had to end up finishing up the documentary without him. He's flaky. We're not. We're not. We're thinking he might be an alien.
Maybe.
Honestly, yeah,
Ooh,
we're not
maybe.
sure because tied into Paranormal. He is. We don't know where he's from, and he's very strange. So
That seems very convenient.
yeah. Yeah, we're thinking he's probably an alien. Like, what kind of name is that? Linda Barron Charles III?
Alien.
Is he a guy, a girl? We don't know.
All right.
Okay, so-
You can find us on Twitter and also any type of social media with just using the Spooky Door. You can also find us online at thespookydoor.com. You can email us with your stories, information, anything you want to share, or whatever at info@thespookydoor.com. Is there anything else you want to share?
No, just aside from the fact that, again, if you have any questions, stories you want to share, if you're interested in being a guest on our show, Jordan's giving you all the ways that you can contact us. So don't be shy and reach out to us. We will be happy to talk with you or have you on the show.
And we want to thank Casey again for being on.
Oh.
It's a
Hey, if you get a
pleasure.
chance to be on the show, whoever you are out there, it was super fun. Super fun. They're great people.
We
We'll
do have a lot of
definitely
fun.
want to bring you back
Oh, thanks.
Yes.
We'll definitely have
Yes,
you on
you will
our
be back.
show.
There will
Great.
be more.
Because I feel like there's a lot of other stuff we didn't get to
Yeah.
cover on
Yes,
this episode.
I'd love to go on one of your excursions if you ever
Yeah.
want
Oh,
to.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely.
We have
so
Hell-
many places we want to go.
So we have Helltown coming up. Then we have, which got postponed, so we have pushed that one back. And then we're going to go to the Mansfield reformatory. We're going to go to a couple Civil War sites
Yeah.
and some other places. We have some ideas.
I mean, the list is endless
Yeah.
as far as
Yeah.
places we could go to. Like
Yeah.
Yeah. So
There's
we have
just-
all kinds of ideas. So if
the
you
whole Mansfield thing, you could make
right.
a probably week-long
Right.
trip about going other places in
Right.
Mansfield. There's a lot of places there that if you get
Well,
there and
Ohio
you go
in
to the
general.
reformatory, there's a lot of local places that you get there and people be like, oh yeah, this place is haunted.
Right.
Yeah.
This building's haunted.
Yep. And so yeah, if Casey or if you're just a listener has any ideas or suggestions of where we go, you know how to get a hold on this.
Yeah. Let us
Casey,
know.
thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you guys.
Once again, my name is Jordan. With me as always, Ashley, and join us next time through the Spooky Door.